Hey, good evening, friends. It's Lisa Neller here with Lisa Neller Coaching, and I have a question for you, and that is, what do you need to break away from, if anything? You may not need to break away from anything, but if you do, consider what that might be. I want you to stay tuned because tonight we're going to hear from my friend and my colleague, Paulette Bodeman, tonight, as she shares her wisdom on how to break away from a life that you may not love anymore. And once you engage in this kind of work, then you can leave a legacy for others to enjoy. First, I want to welcome you to Unstuck, the Road to Reinvention. Again, I'm Lisa Neller. I'm a reinvention life coach, and I help women get unstuck from mental blocks, from objections, from obstacles and things that seem to get in the way of making a life change, particularly with empty nesters. So I like to help empty nesting women get their mojo back, find their purpose after being a stay-at-home mom or being a mother, whether you're stay-at-home or not, and helping those women just kind of move forward and set a new course. You can find out more about me at reinventionlifecoach.com. You can also go to lisanellercoaching.com. Okay, so I want to introduce my guest tonight, Paulette Bodeman. Now, I met Paulette years ago at a yoga studio where we both have taught, and Paulette was one of my primary teachers there, actually, and I love her teaching of yoga. She has a gift of really getting you connected to your own heart and your body in a way that is highly transformative. So I miss her teaching because neither one of us have been in a studio setting for quite a while, as you all know. So I'm going to give you a little more background on Paulette. She is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher and is certified in Anusara and integrative yoga therapy. She's also a certified integrative empowerment coach. Paulette is an author, speaker, and inspiring leader. She's determined to help us break away from the BS limiters that keep us stuck in the muck of our stories so that we can break free and claim our power, take action and authorship of our lives. I love the word freedom, and I'm wearing a flag that kind of reminds me of that. So anyway, she's going to help us learn how to live a legacy of greatness today. And Paulette is the founder of the Women's Breakaway Academy and the author of The Breakaway Girl, Secrets of a Tantric Yogi, which I highly recommend. And we are going to talk about that a little bit later. And she's the creator of Open to Grace Asana card deck. And she's the founder of Mystic Heart Yoga Retreats. Oh my gosh, they've been to Italy. They've been to, I don't know where, around the world. They've held some amazing retreats. And with a passion for learning and knowledge, she earned her BA degree in transpersonal psychology and continues to study with renowned yoga scholars and transformational world leaders. So I want to welcome you, Paulette. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa, for having me here. How fun. What a great thing.
Always fun to be with you. And we're going to not do girl chat. We're going to talk business tonight. We're going to talk how to make some transformational changes. And first, what I'd like to do, Paulette, is have you talk about how you reinvented yourself as a yoga instructor and an empowerment coach after years of being what you call a misguided bad girl.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I grew up in a very normal household with a mom and dad and 3 brothers. And why I was just sort of gone off the little bit of a deep end. I as a child, I was always searching. I always wanted answers and I had questions. And so I just found myself seeking those answers to what life was all about through, sex and drugs and rock and roll. And it really led me off the path. And yet, because of my experiences, at some point in my early 20s, when I was experimenting, with drugs and alcohol, one of my clients, I was a barber, and in my other life. And one of my clients suggested, because he was worried about me, that he handed me a flyer, and it was to a Kundalini yoga meditation and yoga class. And so I had it for the longest time, and I smoked cigarettes, and I was just kind of a mess. And so I went, and I stepped into that ashram, and I write about it in the book. And I stepped into that temple, actually, and I knew something powerful was happening. And it just drew me. I felt like I was in a foreign country, and yet I also felt like I was home. And so I had this push-pull relationship with yoga and meditation for quite a while, until my life just started to get to a place of going, is this what I really want? I really don't even like myself anymore. And I wasn't, I knew if my parents, who I really adored and loved, if they knew half of what I was doing, they would be so sad and disappointed. So yoga, I feel, really saved me. So.
And you didn't really, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't really love that first class, right? Like, didn't it take you a while to kind of go back to it, or did you love it right from the start?
Well, I knew something powerful was happening, but I also knew on another level that, this is going to ask me to change my life, and I don't think I'm ready for that. So I didn't. It wasn't until I was an older adult, that I really stepped back into yoga. It took another good 15, 20 years. I would touch into it and say, oh yeah, this is it. And then, no, I don't think so. And then touch into it again, and no. And each time, though, those seeds were planted, and they took hold a little bit more, until finally, as an adult, well, I had a son, and I wanted to be a good mom. And I knew that I had to show up in a different way. And so that really was a turning point for me too, to say, I am just not the person that I could be. And so I stepped back into yoga, but even that then took me a while to really go from being a yoga student to taking the philosophy seriously, and really dive into the teachings, and then become a teacher.
Awesome. Okay, I have Isabel Meyer, who has tuned in, says she can't hear us. Isabel, can you hear us now? She's saying it doesn't work, but I think we can hear. I think the audio is okay. So I'm going to keep going, and hopefully, hopefully those of you out there will be able to hear us. And I just want to say, Paulette, you're not the only one who smokes cigarettes and drinks. Not the only yoga teacher that did that.
Yeah.
I have a past too. And it's funny, as students, we sit and we sort of elevate the teacher a little bit and think, oh my gosh, she's perfect. And then, when we hear stories of reality and how we're just normal people going through evolutionary growth, it's like, whew, okay.
Yes.
Not just me,
Yes. Yes.
So it's really refreshing.
Which is one reason why I wrote the book. It was from questions that students had. They do see you sort of as this guru. And I write about that in the book as well, that, no, please, I came from a lot of dark places. And if I could do it, so could you.
Yes. Yeah. All right. What does it mean to be a breakaway girl?
Thank you for that question. How the title of the book came, and how this whole sort of philosophy then started to arise and take shape and form is really interesting, because I was writing and talking with my husband. We were hiking, and I talk about this too in the book. And I was talking about that my mom used to call me the black sheep of the family. And my husband's comment was, I don't see you as the black sheep of the family. And I'm like, no, I don't think I'm the black sheep of the family either. I'm a breakaway girl. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a breakaway girl. And so I had to really sit with that and meditate on that and live with that, and what that really means. And what came to me was those early years, those misbegotten misadventures that I had into, sex and drugs, is that I was trying to break away from something and find something. And I was breaking away from old patterns and cultural sort of, while I came from a really great family, every family has stuff. And so really wanting something that was maybe looked a little bit different that came before me. And so a breakaway girl to me, or guy, is somebody who wants to break away from something that's holding them back from fulfilling their potential. And we're always fulfilling our potential, and we're always breaking away. It's actually one of the yoga tantric teachings, is that we're breaking away and remaking ourselves all the time. So a breakaway girl is someone who, what I really want to impart is that I was breaking away in ill ways, not very conscious ways. But we could break away in more conscious and informative and intelligent ways to shift our lives.
Yeah. So if someone is struggling, let's say with a habit, let's say with a smoking habit or a drinking habit or something like that, they really just need to become aware of kind of where they're at and how a lot of that is subconscious habit, and maybe they do want to change it, and maybe it's tough, and maybe you could help them with that. So what does it mean to leave a legacy?
Well, I noticed in the coaching world for a while, I was kind of studying this, that it seemed like, the big names, Tony Robbins and Mel Robbins and these coaches were talking about leaving a legacy. And what came to me is that in order to live a legacy, we actually have to be and live a legacy. We have to be a legacy. So, and it came to me actually from walking the path of especially my mom, but I lost my folks 2 years ago. And so it was walking this journey with my mother as she was preparing herself to transition, the last few years of her life. She was ill. And so what really struck me is that my mom considered leaving a legacy of finances or a house. And so they didn't have a lot of means. And when we sat with my family and discussed that she was the legacy, and what she was leaving was her compassion and her generosity and her sense of a joy for life and her forthrightness and all of these amazing qualities of who she was, that's the legacy. And people, I believe, are still feeling like, it has to be monetary. It has to be, physical. But in my mind, legacy is who you are, and that what you leave, those imprints that you leave on people. And you can leave a bad legacy too, depending on who you are and how you've lived your life. But to leave a legacy is that you literally have to be a living legacy.
And I see that in my stepmom, for example. She has been an animal advocate for probably 45 years or more. And the work that she's done and the money that she's raised on behalf of animals is stunning. And how she was the executive director of a nonprofit organization. She's still executive director emeritus because they love her so much. And she still contributes and manages their gala and stuff like that.
Wow.
At 81, she's still doing it. So anyway, thank you for that. Thank you for those explanations of being a breakaway girl and what it means to leave a legacy. And then let's get into, I forgot to tell the audience that you were going to talk about 4 tips to be a breakaway girl. So anyway, this is what's coming. Paulette is going to give us 4 tips to be a breakaway girl. So let's just get on with it, Paulette. Start with number 1.
Okay, well, that's great because you said that already. First, you have to be aware. You have to be aware that something's off. And the women that you coach, you know, they're empty nesters and maybe they're wanting to reinvent themselves. And so maybe not necessarily that they feel stuck in the muck, as I say, or they're BS limiters, but they're wanting, you know, it's a different phase and time in their life. And so there has to be a sense of awareness. Oh, here I am, and I'm in a place of I could just stay here, or I want to shift and I want to grow, and maybe there's a new phase in my life. And in fact, like I had a conversation with my older brother today. He just retired, and after 48-year career, and they call him a living legend. He's a legacy, and he's very excited. And I wasn't sure how he would take this because he's loved his work and he's been good at it. And so what I heard from him was an excitement that there was something new on the horizon. He just didn't know what it was yet. So there's an awareness that there's a turning point in your life, and you can take that turn, or you could just stay stuck where you are. So there's awareness. And then as coaches, and I'm sure you'll agree, Lisa, that a breakaway girl or man, guy, has to be willing to do the deeper work. You know, it's one thing to be aware, oh shit, I'm stuck. Or, you know, gee, I think I want to do something different, and there's a level of awareness. But if you're not willing to really look inside at some of those places, like I finally had to do many years ago, like, oh, there's some dark places here. And maybe not even so dark, but just really take a good, honest look at yourself. You know, you have to be willing to do that interior work and say, okay, where am I stuck? What is the BS that I'm telling myself? What is my inner critic saying? And sort of befriend those parts of yourself instead of putting them away or trying to bury them deeper. That's another tip. You have to be willing to do that. And then,
well, before you move on, let me ask you, and I hate to interrupt you, but what is a way to do the inner work? So I get it, you know, and for me, it's been journaling, meditation, prayer, you know, lots of different spiritual things. What does that look like for someone who is wanting to do inner work, but they don't even know what that is?
Well, all of that. I think you have to be willing to journal and spend some time in meditation, whether it's walking meditation, and and catch yourself, you know, when something arises and you feel triggered, to be able to take a moment, a pause and a breath and step back and say, instead of going right into defense, is to step back and go, oh, I'm triggered. What's this about? And of course, my third step is be coachable. I truly believe in coaching. I have a coach. I've been coached. I've done therapy. I know your daughter is a psychologist. So I think getting a mentor, or having someone, even if it's a trusted friend that's willing to be that reflective mirror for you, someone that you trust, that knows you, that loves you, that's going to be honest with you, but can be this reflection, because so often we don't see ourselves clearly. And so we have to be able to start to get clarity. And then usually a coach or a mentor or a psychologist will start to have you implement some journaling. They'll give you prompts to look at and guide you through that. You know, I see coaching as a collaboration. It isn't just a one-sided thing. And some of the, I think some of my greatest coaches have been coaches that are willing to be coached, you know. So I think being coachable is a total step.
Yeah. And let's see, you had, so being coachable. Yeah. And I just want to say one more thing about that. I think I think there's still a lot of people that don't understand what coaching is, and most people aren't looking for coaches. They don't really know what that is, but right.
Yeah.
A lot of us coaches know what it is, but then there's all these people that don't really know. And what it is you have a thinking partner. You have someone who can walk alongside you and help you see your own insights. Like, right? So
Yes.
coaches aren't like telling you what to do, and they're not saying you have to meditate or you have to do this, but they're kind of saying, you know, what do you think you need to do? And helping you see your own obstacles. And then you could be, you know, and they're usually in your head. And that's one way, right, that we help them move forward.
Absolutely. And so I always sort of revert back to my yoga philosophy training. And that's a very tantric yoga teaching, is to be the mirror. And there's something called prakasha vimarsha. It's this when that light bulb goes off and you could see yourself clearly, but you usually need some kind of help. And so that's what coaches do. You know, if we're stuck, the thing about coaching too that I love, and the people that come to coaching are people who are aware and want to make a shift, and they have a level of consciousness about themselves. You know, they really know, like, gosh, I'm just kind of stuck in this little area and I don't know why. I can't sort of get off the dime.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like I can't move for some reason. And so a coach will be that thinking partner or that mirror and repeat back like some of the things that you've said to yourself, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess I knew that all along. And so this great, you know, window of opportunity and insight opens up. And then the fourth step, I think that, so you have to be aware, and then you have to be willing to do some work and to be coachable. And to me, it's then where we still get stuck sometimes is we're not willing to take action. So to be a breakaway girl, you have to take a risk. You have to be willing to take, and not just like, I think I'll, you know, dive off this cliff or something. You have to have skillful action. You've sort of put your pieces together. It doesn't mean that it's going to work out perfectly. Doesn't mean you might not get hurt again, but it does mean that you're willing to take some massive skillful action. So those are my tips.
And that takes some courage, right?
Yes.
But courage, we know, comes from the heart. So if your heart is telling you, I need to move forward, then you have to take that first step and take some action there. Yes. Let me ask you this. What is, in your words or sentences, what does empowerment mean to you? Because you are an empowerment coach. What does empowerment really mean to you?
Well, especially this time that we're in right now, you know, we're in a pandemic, and it hasn't happened in 100 years that there was something this grave and unsettling going on. And I think what we can relate to, many people relate to, is we feel a little bit out of control, and we feel disempowered. Like, yes, we're having people tell us we have to stay home, we have to shelter in, you know, different areas are spiking again. And so now we have to wear masks, or we don't have to wear masks, or whatever. And so we feel disempowered, like things are being imposed on us. But from a yoga point of view, and I'm actually writing about it, I'm writing a blog about it right now, is that freedom and liberation comes from within, and empowerment comes from within. No matter what those external circumstances look like, even though they're tough, like we didn't cause the pandemic. You know, it wasn't because we were in a bad relationship and a pandemic happened. It is an external circumstance, but we can empower ourselves by building our immune system, by learning about that, by learning about the breath and doing pranayama, by getting insight into ourselves to see where we're triggered. I know, you know, I've been doing some pro bono work, and so people are having relationship issues. And so empowerment means breaking away to me. Empowerment means I'm done with this. I've completed this circle of whatever it is. And now I need to move and expand and to more of my potential. Whatever that looks like, it doesn't mean, even with your reinvention coaching and your women who have stayed home, maybe they choose to continue to stay home. But they will do it from a place of consciousness. This is what I want. This is what fulfills me. That's empowerment to me.
You know, when you brought the whole COVID thing up, it reminds me of being in Warrior 2 and the teacher saying, okay, we're going to stay here a while. And not only are we going to stay here a while, I want you to keep that knee over to the right and just go a little bit deeper and hold that for a while. And then you ask yourself, what the hell am I doing here? This is really hard, right? And then you're like, but I chose to be here. I chose to be here. So I'm going to find that strength within myself to get through this pose until she lets us out.
Yeah, you know, if there's an inner fortitude that we all have, but life and circumstances. One of the things I want to share too is that it isn't new. It's been around. Coaches talk about it. I just sort of put it in my framework called the Breakaway Girl Rubric. And so it's this idea of break. It isn't the circumstances of your life that keep you stuck or keep you from reinventing yourself. It's our beliefs about the circumstance. And, and the R then is the ruminations or the rabbit hole we go down. And then because of those ruminations, then emotions arise. And the emotions stir the pot. And then the A is you have to step back and take authorship of your life. Like, okay, this is my life, and here's my trigger, or here's the dream I have for my life. Here's the aspiration I have for my life. I need to own this life. I need to own that this is my belief. I need to own these emotions. And then the K is kinesiology. As a yogi, we like movement. And so I see kinesiology as, first of all, we have to move somehow, whether it's through a Warrior 2 pose or an asana class. We have to move the emotions and beliefs through and out of our body. Maybe it's a hike, maybe it's swimming, whatever, moving. And then kinesiology is action. We have to take that step forward. We have to move forward. So all of that, I see that Breakaway Rubric as an empowerment tool. You could say, oh, this is happening to me and all of that. And of course, when we're in the middle of it, it sucks. And we don't always see it. So we have to be able to learn how to step back a little bit, take a breath or two, which is what you would do in Warrior 2 when the teacher says, hold it for another 3 minutes. If you're holding your breath, you're not gonna be able to do it. If you could, settle into yourself and take a pause and take a big breath and take an exhale, you'll be able to stay there, and then a space opens up.
Yes.
And that's empowerment to me.
I just want to acknowledge that Isabel said she misses us both, and we look great.
Thank you, Isabel.
And Kelly Alonso Tate says, I love Paulette. So that's so nice. Thanks, ladies.
Too. Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do a watch party so we can help more women.
Yes. And I have to say, Lisa, I love what you're doing. I love that. And, I think, too, empowerment is you've lived a certain life. So we, as coaches, our life experience informs how we coach, who we coach. So I think that what you're doing is fabulous. And I'm so happy for you and happy for the women whose hearts you will touch and lives you will touch.
Thank you so much. It's so sweet of you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what would you say to someone who might be thinking, it's too late for me to leave a legacy? I'm too old, or I'm too young. What would you say?
Well, I would say you're never too young, because if you start at a young age to know, part of coaching helps you know what you value. what your values are. And of course, some of them may change as we age, but as a young person, when you know what's really important to you and what your core values are, then that is part of learning to be and live a legacy. And you will be on that path, that roadmap that I call it, roadmap to legacy. And it is never too late. I believe it is never too late. Look at your mother-in-law that is 81 and they still want her. And my mom was 90 when she passed. And she was still, people were still of all ages calling her and emailing her. She was on email and she was a riot for guidance. They didn't really want her to tell them what to do, but they knew that she would be honest and forthright and help them see what was in front of them. So that's a legacy to me. That's a major legacy. So I don't think you're ever too old to start something else. And I follow somebody, Nancy Mills, on Facebook, and she has a group, and I'm sorry, Nancy, I can't remember right now, but she just turned 70 and realized that she loves to paint. So she's doing all these incredible watercolor paintings, and she's doing it on Instagram Live and all of this. And she's reinventing herself, and she's living a legacy. She's becoming that legacy. So I think it's fabulous, and I don't think it's ever too late.
Oh, Isabel has a great question. She said, must everyone have a purpose in life, or isn't just living already a huge purpose?
Oh,
that is a good question.
I love that question. And in fact, on my Roadmap to Legacy course, one of the modules is about living your purpose. And I think that's such a fabulous question, because I think purpose freaks women out, especially. And I think our purpose is to show up fully and learn what makes us happy and joyful. And it doesn't have to mean that we're striving to be a CEO of a corporation, or we have to have this great career. Or I think, yes, living purposefully is your purpose. Living with meaning, whatever it is that you're doing. And I use my mom as an example all the time, because she, I think, was the first breakaway girl I knew. I didn't know that. And she lived a legacy, and she had a high school education. She never went to college. She lived her purpose because she was always curious and always learning and growing, and really listened to people. And so her interactions with people were meaningful. To me, that's living your purpose. I
love that, Paulette. That's beautiful, and I'm glad you asked that question, Isabel. I have my stepmom, who's the 81-year-old. I have my mother-in-law, who's 93, and I will say that my mother-in-law had 7 children, and she didn't ever really work outside of the home after having kids, but she served in the PTA. She served in the polling and the booths where you go vote. She's done a lot of stuff, and she's been there for her family, and she's a happy person. She still sews. She makes jewelry. She reads. She's just amazing, and full of positive attitude. And I believe her purpose is, I do believe she lives life on purpose. Like she just, I don't know, it's a positive attitude thing. She just loves living and loving is what she loves to do. So
it's engagement. Living with purpose is engagement, like you're really engaged in your life. And I see Isabel's comment here about she feels like purpose has a male energy. And I think that's such a cool observation. And not everybody might feel that way. But and what I really love, and right now is what we are in the age of the feminine. We have to be. It is about owning our femininity. And it's about this mystical marriage. It's about communion. And so whatever it is, whether we are living on purpose by volunteering and creating beauty in our life, action is a masculine energy. So that's okay to embrace that masculinity in us. It's actually a good thing if we do it with this awareness and this consciousness about how we're directing that energy and how we want to engage in life.
Yeah, and you know, I think of the divine, at least something that has just hit me recently, not all that recently, but in a certain way recently, is that, you know, to think of divine as like male or female energy, it really is both. I mean, I think you have to look at that. Whatever's coming in from the divine has both, and makes the world well-rounded. So thank you for that, Isabel. That was a great question, and so glad you were joining us tonight. Okay, so I think we're just about out of time, but is there anything else you want to add before we talk about your book and where people can find you?
No, I'm just grateful to be here, and thank you for the engagement and the curiosity, your followers, and yeah, just stay connected to yourself and be willing to look at, you know, where you want to go in this life.
Thank you, Paulette. Well, I just want to talk about your book for a moment. And I'm going to read, what do they call it at the beginning? It's like a testimonial, but this is the book, Breakaway Girl, Secrets of a Tantric Yogi. And, you know, I've known Paulette for a long time, and I've heard her story. And I knew she was a good writer, but when I read this book, I couldn't put it down. I'm not even kidding. It was so good. And I'm going to tell you, this is what one person wrote in the beginning of the book prior to the preface. Sharing one's story with naked authenticity is perhaps the most sincere gift of love anyone can present. Paulette Bodeman offers readers her story without any glossy finish, soft lighting, or color touch-ups. She tells of descending into the darkness, climbing and sometimes clawing her way out, and stretching toward the light of insight and wisdom. In these pages, a reader will find connection, inspiration, and motivation. And that was by Susan Moore, English faculty, Scottsdale Community College. And I want to say, and Susan sounds like she's a pretty good writer herself, just from reading that. But then you get into Paulette's first paragraphs, and you can't put the book down. That's how well written it is. So Paulette, I want you to just talk a little bit about the book and what inspired you to write it, or just tell us what you want to tell us about the book.
Okay. People are asking me if I'm writing another one, and I'm like, yes, I'm not sure. I'm kind of finding my way with it. But it started because, you know, I've been teaching for a long time and then coaching, and people would ask me questions. And they had this idea of, you know, well, can you always do yoga? Can you always do this? And what do you eat for breakfast? And are you vegetarian? And so it kind of started from that. And then in my younger days, I wrote a lot, and then I stopped writing, and then I was a journaler. And I bumped into a mutual friend of ours, Steve Price, who wrote the preface, and he just encouraged me to write. And I took a couple of his classes, and it just started to come together. And I realized that while it was cathartic, it was also a way to show, and I was hoping that it was empowering to other people. Like you said earlier, like when you see someone who's come out of the depths, then you know that you can make it too. And so in one way, it was my way. When my mom read it, when my 90-year-old mother read it, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you know, what are your students going to think?" And I said, "I think they're going to say yes." And she was pleasantly surprised that people were, you know, happy to hear that out of imperfection comes more of who you are. You know, out of your misalignment, you could find yourself. And so that's really one of the reasons why I wrote the book.
And isn't there a saying you have, like, out of the muck comes something? What is that saying? What is?
Yes, it's a haiku that I wrote. Seeds of love we plant, from the muck we bloom.
It is the highest teaching.
It is the highest teaching. It is the highest teaching, yeah. And so in the back of the book then are some exercises and practices because I wanted people to be able to have something that tangible that they could actually experiential then that they could use if they were searching and struggling themselves, things that helped me.
Okay. And where can people get your book?
Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
And they could go to my website and it'll lead them to that.
Yeah. So where else can people find you? Tell us what your website is and where else you are.
PauletteBodeman.com. You could go to PauletteBodeman.com and there's you know, a lot of content up there. I'm building the content, but there's a legacy library for free content and some YouTube videos. And so you could find me there. You could find me on Instagram. You could find me on Facebook. And I'm not so big on LinkedIn, but I'm there. But mostly social media.
Okay. I am typing your PauletteBodeman.com in the chat, in the host chat. So hopefully people can see that. All right. So PauletteBodeman.com, Amazon.com, Facebook. She's everywhere.
Yes.
Paulette, thank you from the bottom of my heart, you know.
Thank you. Thank
so
you from the bottom
honored
of my
to be
heart.
your friend and have you as a guest. And I appreciate your time so much. And I look forward to connecting with you later on at the end of the summer. So that's my friend Paulette. She's amazing. So if you need to talk to her, give her a ring. And for the rest of you, or for all of you who've listened tonight, thank you so much. If you listen to the recording, thank you so much. Again, you can find me at lisaneller.com, lisanellercoaching.com. And if you're an empty nesting woman and you want to start reinventing yourself, you can find me at reinventionlifecoach.com. And I have a free video series there for you to help you get started. Okay. So again, thank you all. Have a fabulous holiday weekend. If you're in the States, it's time to celebrate Independence Day. And if you're around the world, we send our love. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Lisa. Ciao.
Ciao.